Okay, welcome to your first SAT reading and writing lesson in the 5-week study plan. Today's topic, we will tackle one of the most polarizing questions in the SAT reading and writing section, words in context. Usually, test takers find this question either very interesting, especially with the new DSAT format, it's shorter, or either find this very hard to get it right, especially for those whose English as their second language. So one necessary condition to improve your performance on this question is to enrich your vocabulary, which you can do with our vocabulary builder feature that comes with all Take5SAT subscription. However, the sufficient condition to answer the words in context questions requires some finesse and skills that we will learn in lesson 1 and lesson 2 of the study plan. The bottom line is, ensure that you should try to do as many vocabulary builder quiz as possible every day and practicing the skills you learn in today's lesson using the quiz and homework features. We also encourage you to practice more by doing these questions in the domain practice feature. With consistent practice, you will definitely master this question type. The DSAT words in context questions come in two types. The first is fill in the blank, which is what you are looking at here. Like other DSAT reading and writing questions, you are given 3 parts: a short paragraph or the context, a question, and 4 multiple choice answers. When you do the DSAT, the order of questions gets shuffled and you are not given the tag name to know what type of question you are asked. But quickly look at the question part first to identify the question type before reading the text, so you know what skill to apply without wasting time reading and understanding everything in the text first. For this question, obviously, you are expected to understand the context to be able to find the right one. And also, you have to know the meanings of all the given choices to be able to eliminate. The principal approach that you will see in many other SAT prep materials is 1. Understand the context, 2. Make an educated guess on the missing word, and 3. Choose the closest word from the answer that fits your guess. However, we will introduce you a more concrete technique that doesn't require you to fully understand the context and make an educated guess, which will warranty higher success rate for this question type. The second type is asking for the closest meaning of a word in the text. Spoiler alert, it is not going to ask you an exact synonym. It's a common trap a lot of students get into. It works sometimes, but it requires understanding the nuances of all the words and fitting the closest word to the given context. That being said, you will learn 2 strategies to tackle both questions, either to make an educated guess of the missing blank or to find closest meaning of a given word. We will learn the first strategy today and the second one on the next lesson. The first strategy, the parallel universe, is a great way to understand the context without getting too much into the reading and unnecessary details. This strategy is built upon the principle that the information that you need to fill in the blank is already mentioned somewhere else in the text, like in a parallel universe. You just need to find the bridges for this reference. In all texts within this type of question, there will be 2 parts. These parts are usually divided by a punctuation indicating a complete clause. You can revise this on lesson 3 about punctuation in the study plan. In this example, you can quickly divide the 2 parts by looking at the semicolon right here. Once the 2 parts are separated, the before, the after, we need to look for the pairs of parallel references. How to do that? So there are some clues. Number 1, pay attention to pronounce like this right here. This means that the blank is mentioned previously. So you can narrow down the search. You are only looking for something like similar to this. Clue number 2, the parallel universe applies not only for the missing blank, but there will be at least something else also been referred. find the bridge for this parallel reference, then it will lead you to find similar mirror. Let's look at this example. You can find this other reference by looking at the missing blank first. It is something to describe the effort. So let's try to find if we can find a previously mentioned effort. With that in mind, we can quickly find this parallel mirror of effort, which is work, or how this person worked or put in the effort. How is this work or effort described? Here, continuously. There you go. This is the second parallel reference that you need. Where is it mirrored? To the blank. So we are looking for an answer to repeat the idea of continuous or never stop effort. Then the right answer would have to be persistent. Let's try again here, but this time the blank shows up earlier. First, divide the two universe using the period. Then notice the pronouns these, indicating these uncontrollable contractions have been mentioned previously. So in the first part, we locate this mirrored information and we see that there's no mention of this in the first sentence. Obviously, it has to be the missing part. So we are looking for something similar to uncontrollable. Obviously, it has to be involuntarily. You can see how this technique is very powerful because once you master it, it saves you a lot of time and energy because it does not require reading the full text. Let's look at another way the parallel reference is drawn, where the division of two parts might be more tricky. In here, we see the phrase, this model, meaning that we can look for this reference previously. So what is this model? We can't really scan for any similar words in the previous sentence if we decide to use the period as the separation of two parts. So don't be afraid to pivot the strategy, either by separating two parts using another indicator other than the period, or switch to another parallel reference that you can confidently point out. If we still want to use the division using the period here, knowing that the two universe, the first and the second sentence, what else in the second sentence got mirrored other than this model? A collaboration is a good cue. We see that it mirrors equal partners previously. So this is in fact a parallel reference. We can now confidently understand that this model is about the collaboration between these partners. So turn out this model refers to a collaboration and also to equal partners. If you divide the two universe in another way, simply from within the same sentence, usually as a subject, then a verb, then an object, then the two universes could be the subject and the object of the same sentence, like this one right here. Another parallel reference can be drawn here, more hidden, but this is also a DSAT favorite trick. You see that crowd tribe is referred to previously as tribal nations, and Montana State University is mirroring research institutions. So now, given all the mirror references, apparently the blank cannot mirror anything else. So it has to be the description for the bridge, meaning it has to be exemplified. The second sentence is an example of the first. Of course, if you are a strong reader, you can also understand the context, reading it thoroughly in the previous sentence, and you would understand that, oh, there are two parties collaborating for research, and then in the second sentence, they start to name drop the institutions, so it has to be an example for the general observation. There are many ways you can solve the DSAT question. It's still a great idea to know all the possible ways of solving it to avoid intuitive bias and not double checking, which is usually the most common reason why students don't break into the 1500 plus score tier. The previous example shows you how sometimes the blank is the relationship itself, but they're not always as simple as just supporting or contrast relationship. Let's take a look into the next example. So for this example, we see the pronouns this, indicating that this noun is already mentioned. To locate this information easier, check out for a second cue. We see that the word we need is something to describe the relationship of the tiny daughter with its host. So let's see how the same couple's dynamic is described in the previous sentence. We quickly see that the daughter and its host have a flowering at the same time kind of thing. So this must be what the blank indicates. So the relationship of two parallel mirrors here is not just supporting, like give an example, reinforce, or emphasize. You now may need to be able to acquire another skill, which is paraphrasing, to be able to find the same description for the phrase flowering at the same time. Of all four answers, that will be synchronization, emphasizing on at the same time. Some students at this point might think the word must be something related to flowering or reproducing, but since there is no such answer, we go with the at the same time part of it. Knowing the DSAT likes to give you more clues than necessary, you can use different ways to solve it. Let's try this question. First way, we see that the blank is in the previous part before the colon. Let's see what is repeated in the second sentence and work backwards. We see the cue this again, so use that. Clearly, we can see that this might be the reference for the missing blank since we don't see any other parallel reference. This quickly helps you find the answers repudiates. Second way, we can map another parallel reference of characters in distant past with dress in contemporary styles or current slang. This is a different mirror where it shows the absolute contrast. This means that the bridge or description for this relationship has to show that opposition. Therefore, rejection or repudiation are what we want to look for. In this example, where the blank is placed in the first sentence, the reference cue is less obvious. There is no pronouns like this, but we can look at the conjunction because, implying the connection of the two universes here. Also, we can see that the blank shows a characteristic of this painter, so no need to look at the description of his own artwork. We can see that in this part, he is described to pay close attention to all details. That's the reference you need to draw the parallel mirror with the blank, so we choose observant. The DSAT words in context question can become more difficult, just like this example. The College Board will make sure there are some sprinkle of more advanced questions in each genre to better reflect the distribution of score among all testers and ensure the validity of the 99 percentile score range. It means that you need to be able to see through tricks that make the questions more complicated, just like this one, where there is no refer pronouns and you have to summarize a phrase to the essence of the observant. Another way that the difficulty can be raised is directly using more advanced vocabulary beside tricky hidden parallel pairs. The technique is the same, but with some twist, like how you might be more careful when dividing the two universes here, since we are having multiple punctuation in just one sentence. Since we know that we are looking for a characteristic of such stimuli, we can either see that it might be external stimuli all the way here, which is very tempting, but we don't see any word in the answer that is close to external. Don't freak out. It just means that we might need to look for more than the literal word stimuli. If you understand the meaning of this word, you can also see that it's mentioned through the phrase harmless applications of vibration or warming. These are all stimuli. So the character harmless can be used to mirror to the blank. However, you need to know the meaning of all the answers in order to find the right one, which is innocuous or harmless. This is why we encourage you to build up your vocabulary with our vocabulary builder tool to comfortably solve such hard questions, especially if your goal is to reach the 1500 plus score tier. Let's see how this technique applies to a closest meaning question instead of a fill in the blank one by revisiting this question. We also see that the pronouns this quality indicates that in the previous sentence, there is a mirror reference for you to understand what this quality means. However, questions like this one, which is an excerpt from a fiction or sometimes a poem, might be more tricky for non-English speaking students. Don't spend too much time and energy trying to understand exactly every word, but rather try to grasp the function of the given text. A good tip is try to think like you are watching a movie and this is the voice over description of the scene. But what exactly are you seeing on the scene? But what exactly are you seeing on the screen? So apparently, we are seeing the main character, Jay Gatsby, like the image here. He is balancing himself on a car with some expression showing his restless energy hidden behind the polished look. Therefore, this quality has to refer to his characteristic or his restlessness here. For these excerpt questions, it's helpful to read the context provided at the beginning. Here, a physician is doing an experiment of rehydrating a dried flower. We see that the phrase we need to find the reference for is a singular change, but using such an indefinite pronoun like this means it has not been mentioned previously. So the cue for reference will be somewhere after this. So what is the characteristic of this change? Again, try to visually understand the description instead of getting all literal meanings. We see that the dried flower became a red flower with description like reviving from a death-like slumber, which means like coming back from death. Quite magical, isn't it? So this change is very dramatic, very significant, almost like unbelievable. So the only answer that fits is D. It is very easy to fall into the trap of simple answer like a lonely, since it's literal synonym of a singular. This is why it's important to master this technique, because this is how the DSAT question is constructed to trick you.